Okay, I'm up in this big red oak. It's on the edge of the river. Well, there's about 40 yards of marsh grass and red brush, which is bedding and transition route going up and along the river. And they come out right there where the camera's at. And it took me a lot of work. It doesn't look like it, but to clear this shooting lane, that's one of my main shooting lanes for this particular tree. I had to cut down a big tree, and every year I got to scrape the side of these oaks here because those branches just keep coming out. This year it's not too bad, but that's one of my shot opportunities. Runway crossing the river, coming out into these crops over here. Next one will be at these scrapes. This here is an annual primary scrape area. There's always scrapes here every year, whether there's acorns on this tree or not. And I have a lot of versatility in this tree. I got a lot of wood, so it's easy for me to hide behind the tree. I'm not real high, don't need to be because I've got so much wood. But for this shot, which is at the scrape you're looking at right there on the camera, deer comes up into that scrape. It's typically going to be standing right there. And I would normally be right about in this position. I just lean sideways and take that shot right there. A lot of guys may want to swing all the way over so it's a straight 90-degree shot. Then there's another scrape right there where the camera's at. And if he gets on that scrape like he's working it, I've got plenty of shot opportunities there. I can swing here if I need to shoot out higher there, or on that side I got that shot there. Got plenty of clearance on the tree. There's other scrapes farther down there. Just swing around, plant my butt on this branch. Simple shot there. Lots of solid contact with the tree. Really good brace, simple shot right there. And then there's also some runways on the opposite side of this tree, coming across the river, going out into the crops. This tree's best hunted when this has acorns and when that's in standing corn. So a lot of times I don't get to hunt a lot of my trees because it's not in standing corn. I may have 20 trees prepped that have something to do close by to a crop field, but if it's not standing corn, they don't get hunted. It's that simple. As soon as the corn gets picked, those trees are finished. They're done for me. So there's another scrape down there, but I've got plenty of shot opportunities over there. Another option to shoot there, let's say I was sitting here, because this tree has so much cover in it, there's a possibility that I may also just do this and twist my body around and take that shot. But more than likely, because I always like to keep the tree as a buffer, more than likely this is the way I'm going to come, just like that. Keeping the tree as a buffer is a big deal. That's why when I see these YouTube videos where the guys are on the side of the tree, you know, they're here and their shot's over there, and they make this big movement. If they don't think there's going to come a time when they're going to get picked, they're sadly mistaken, because they will. Unless they're hunting out west or they're hunting in a suburban or a city park or something like that, where just deer don't look up and they don't know what danger is. But when you're hunting bucks that are, 3 years old and older in a pressured area where there's very few of them, yeah, your odds of getting picked are pretty high. One stat that I didn't mention when I was kind of giving my resume, of the 31 bucks that I've got in the Michigan record book, 28 of them, because I butcher my own deer, 28 of those deer had previous hunter wounds. They either had projectiles in them or scars from broadheads or bullets in them. One buck in particular had two 12-gauge buckshot in his neck, had a 2 1/4-inch Vortex broadhead sticking out of his left shoulder, which was all covered in cartilage, so had been there at least a year, had a 12-gauge slug in his butt. So 28 of the 31 3.5-year-old and older bucks I've shot in Michigan that made book, and I've shot some older ones that didn't make book, have had previous wounds. Of the 19 bucks I've shot out of state that were all P and Y and bigger, 0 of them had ever been touched by another hunter projectile. That's the difference between hunting pressure, consequential hunting pressure, and light pressure, or, just areas where there's just not a lot of other hunters and, deer just don't get targeted that much. In a state where they get targeted as 1.5 years and 2.5-year-olds, those deer are going to have wounds when they get to 3 and 4 years old. That's just the circumstances in which they live. That's why they're a lot smarter. That's why they don't move much in daylight hours. That's why they're very security cover oriented. It's just like us as humans. If, you know, we would probably feel very comfortable as hunters walking through any small rural town in pretty much any state. But we would not feel comfortable walking through inner city Chicago in a crime-laden area at midnight, whereas you wouldn't feel uncomfortable at all doing that in a small rural town. Well, deer are exactly the same way. As deer age, they get smarter, and the more pressure that they've had as they're growing to maturity, the less they're going to make themselves vulnerable. The less they're going to move in daylight, the more they're going to be, everything's going to revolve around security cover. It's very noticeable if you're an eastern hunter and you've hunted out west. It's very obvious what the difference is, because bucks out west in lightly hunted states and lightly hunted areas, they just do things that bucks in pressured areas don't do. Walk across open fields, walk through open timber. They just do things that bucks in pressured areas don't do. So it's very, very critical when you're hunting out of a saddle, if you're in a heavily pressured area, as much as you possibly can, keep the tree as a buffer between you and the deer, and then just take a slight lean to the side to make your shot. You're going to get way more opportunities out of a saddle. You're going to have a lot more trees that are available to hunt, crooked trees, straight trees, trees with branches. You know, with a climber, you basically have to have a straight tree with no branches to go up it with a climber. Well, with a saddle, you just open up a lot more avenues to hunt. You know, you may find a phenomenal destination location and you have to be off of that destination somewhat because there's no trees available that fit whatever you're hunting out of, whereas with a saddle there would be. So instead of hunting peripheral sign feeding that location, you're hunting at the destination location where all the activity is coming to a head. And that's a big deal because you're going to have more opportunities that way. To give you guys some idea of what hunting pressure really is, Michigan, it's not uncommon to have 50 to 80 gun hunters in a 640 acre section on opening day. And it's not uncommon to have 20 to 30 bow hunters in a section on opening day of bow season. So when I'm talking hunting pressure, I'm talking hunting pressure. And this is an example. This is a piece of property I have permission to hunt, free permission. But there's still a ton of hunting pressure here. It's damn near as bad as public land, and it's way worse than public land out west. There's a gun blind there on stilts. There's a big gun blind in the fence row. These are all different property owners, by the way. These guys all own 5s and 6s and 10s. There's another gun blind back on that second timber line. There's a gun blind up on that hill near those spruce trees. There's another gun blind right here underneath this big, that's a black cherry tree. And there's also a tree stand in that black cherry tree with a brown gun blind underneath. And then you can barely see the shine of another gun blind. That's probably a quarter of a mile down there at the back side of that weed field. Can you see that? So you got you got 6 gun blinds here within sight. Within a quarter mile, 6 gun blinds and 1 tree stand. I'm sure there's more tree stands. That's just, tree stands are hard to see. So there's a ton of hunting pressure around here. In fact, the first time I hunted this property, the guy that owns the 6 acres next to me, he saw my vehicle parked on the road, and I came in here bow hunting. About an hour and a half before dark, he started shooting a shotgun, and he shot it about every 10 minutes so nothing would move out of this cattail marsh and come up to my tree. It was probably, not probably, it was definitely one of the worst things I've ever had a hunter do. And he did it strictly to stifle deer movements coming out into this crop field. And at the time it was standing corn. He just shot his gun, it's because he's so close and nothing moved that night. I did not see a deer. John Eberhart. Hope you've enjoyed the Eberhart Outdoor videos, and please remember to like and subscribe. And if you've got any topics that you'd like us to do a video on, something in the outdoors, put that in a comment, and we are going to look through all those comments, and we will definitely consider them. And I hope everybody has a great one. The goal is to make everybody a better hunter, better fisherman, and God bless.